Thank you for joining us today. I call the June 16, 2022 meeting of the Human Rights Commission to order. Let's begin with an introduction. We'll start from the right.
Sarah Boonstapple, Commissioner.
Cheryl Shafel, Commissioner.
Jetlo Kao, Commissioner.
Barry Nelson, Commissioner.
Matura Alir, the chair.
Cody Severson, Vice Chair.
Ahmed Shale, Commissioner.
Carolyn B. Kraft, Commissioner.
Hamida Dakhani, Commissioner.
And we have Nancy online. Can you
Nancy
hear?
Boyle, Commissioner.
Thank you. The next item is to approve the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
I second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
the same sign. Motion carried. The next item is to approve the minutes of May meetings. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Barry.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. The next item is the public comment. Those who wish to address the Human Rights Commission must use the sign-in sheet. The speaker must state their name and will be limited to 2 minutes. Comment should not contain profanity or personal attack. Do we have anyone?
Mr. Chair, I don't think anyone is here today.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the update from North Dakota Labor Commission, and we have Erica Sender online.
Yeah, hi, good morning, or I guess afternoon, everyone. Sorry, off by an hour here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. It's yours.
Okay, well, I hope that you all are well. And first of all, just a huge thank you, Katie, for inviting me. Those who I've had conversations with in the past in a remote way, also thank you for allowing me to appear remotely. I'm out of state right now. Usually I have a much better background than this situation for today, but we'll work through it. I was asked here today by Dr. Terry Hogan, and I had also spoke with Barry Nelson about it as well. And so thank you to both of you for the invitation. As far as I understand for today's agenda, I'm just going to be kind of giving a very brief overview of what the Department of Labor and Human Rights is responsible for, and then also opening it up for further conversation on some of the more recent events that have been happening leading up to certain Pride events and things like that. So if you do have questions, and I would be very happy to be as interactive as possible. But to just start with the first agenda item, again, my name is Erica Thunder. I serve as the Commissioner for North Dakota Department of Labor and Human Rights. I've been in this position effectively since June 3rd, 2019. So it's just been a little over 3 years prior. And then during this last 3 years, I've served twice as the interim executive director for the North Dakota Indian Affairs Commission. And then I have since October 2020 I've been serving as an at-large appointed commissioner to the North Dakota Indian Affairs Commission. We meet quarterly. It's a group that consists of the 5 tribal chairs of each of the tribes that share geography with North Dakota, plus 3 at-large appointed members, which includes myself, Dr. McDonald from United Tribes Technical College, and Dr. Viola LaFountain, who serves as the executive director for Trenton Indian Service. So I've been wearing a couple of different hats here during this time, even just with labor and human rights. And I've worked a lot with specifically Barry, and I'm sure plenty of other folks either here or in the audience in some capacity on different issues during my time serving labor and human rights. But what the department does specifically is just even outlined by statute, which is that we're responsible for enforcing North Dakota's labor and human rights laws. So under labor, the department has our wage and hour division. And then under human rights, we have specifically fair housing, which is we've talked a lot about is as groups here, including some of the folks that I know I'm speaking with today. And it also covers other areas of human rights, including public service and accommodation, and making sure that we're upholding protected classes and protected activities against discrimination in any area related to labor and or human rights. And so we're a small agency, even smaller than normal right now, just because of a few retirements that were expected. But nevertheless, it's always bittersweet to say bye to some of our folks who have been with us. But the body of our department is really made up of our compliance investigators, and they do the heart of our work. And we have our human rights director, Kathy Calessa. Some of you might be familiar with her, and I wouldn't be able to do this position without her. She oversees the compliance investigators and really is someone who I rely on a lot as far as decisions that are made within the department. And then she had previously been, as human rights director, that had previously been a role that was appointed. That changed when she took the role 20 years ago officially. So we also have Jessica Juma. I don't know if many of you have met her, but she was just reclassified in our department, which we're very excited about, as our director of operations, a position that we've sorely needed for quite some time, just because so much of the work we've been doing over the last 3 years has amplified, and I came in with such a focus on our own internal business process improvement to be able to make the work that we do more efficient, to be able to serve the North Dakota citizens quicker and more efficiently. So again, we enforce North Dakota's labor and human rights laws under Century Code, and we're also responsible for educating the public about these laws. So even in this context today, happy to do so. But I should note that if anyone ever wants the department to be able to come in to have presentations, or if you have questions, or if you hear from either business owners or employees or landlords or tenants, or a combination of all sorts of different makeups, you can always reach out to us, just even at our main line or our website, or reach out through me, whatever the case is. Some folks know some of our investigators pretty well, and are able to just reach out and ask for us to be able to give presentations, and we can tailor them to anyone's needs. I know in the past, sometimes the department has taken on positions previous to myself joining as commissioner that we only took a certain amount of people. We statutorily, we believe, and under the policy decisions I've made, we'll be there to educate for one person or 500 people, whatever the case may be. And we're very happy to tailor our presentations as well. We've also opened up our presentations now, and our educational presentations, I should say specifically, so that we can deliver those either remotely or in person. We were for a long time presenting remotely, and there were a lot of benefits to that, but we know that there's benefits on both sides of it. So just so all of you know, and if that ever comes up as far as, hey, we have questions on a wage question or paid time off, or maybe how the fair housing laws work in North Dakota or anything else, please know that we're here to be able to educate on that. In addition to all of that work, the department licenses employment agencies operating in the state and can verify the status of independent contractor relationships, which we actually do quite a bit of independent contractor verifications within even just our work on wage claims, or if sometimes it's brought to us by an employer, or maybe another state agency, or whatever the entity may be. And overall, we're here to be of assistance, of course, to first and foremost the North Dakota citizens employees, employers, those purchasing or receiving services, and those providing services. And again, that can be in any of the areas that I defined under human rights as well. And I had like a full timeline that I thought about potentially going through, but you can also visit our website to be able to go through that, because that I think would take up way too much time to be able to go through how we were originally Department of Ag and Labor, and there's been many changes to that. And some of the folks in this conversation today were a huge part of being able to establish the Human Rights Division of the Department of Labor. So I just really want to say a huge thank you to those who were a part of those efforts. It's so vital and integral to the work that we are able to do here in North Dakota. And it also falls in line with what the state is required to do from our federal partners, which include both the EEOC, which is the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, as well as HUD, Housing and Urban Development, with which we both have work share agreements. So I think I will leave it at that as far as who we are as a department. I'm happy to open it up if there are more questions specifically on any other items, and then I can also get into some of the conversations that I've been having related to some of the Pride events.
Thank you so much. Any question for Erica?
My name is Carolyn B. Kraft. What are your most common complaints, and do you see trends accelerating?
Thank you so much, Carolyn. And also, please let me know if I should address anyone in a different way. I have to admit, I don't want to be rude or disrespectful.
You're perfectly fine.
Okay. Our most common complaints at this time, and I use that term interchangeably with claims. Mm-hmm. It's just legalese at the end of the day. But it has been trending for quite some time as both retaliation as well as disability, and sometimes a combination of each. With retaliation, just as some background on that, we handle and enforce the whistleblower laws of North Dakota within the jurisdiction that we work in, so that if you feel that you've been retaliated against because of a certain action that you took or something that you spoke up on, that's something that we enforce as a protection. And one thing I should note too about us that I didn't give in my introduction of the department is that with being a neutral law enforcement agency, you know, we're a civil enforcing law enforcement, so just civil law, and we can't act in an advocacy role, although I know Barry's there and I've got more to say on that later. But we also, and he knows what I'm going to get into on that, but I need to make sure that I make this point. But the department itself has to remain neutral, of course. I've always taken the stance that the commissioner, in the role that I serve, there are times where, of course, there are just things that, of course, whether I'm directed from my boss, the governor, or whatever the case may be, that or things that I find extremely important and have ran through the line that I need to be able to go through for those that I serve, then I'm going to absolutely advocate for certain areas that are really important to address. Your other question, as far as our trends going upwards, essentially,
Yes,
is it
yes, yeah.
It's an important question. It's one that I'm having a hard time answering in the way that I would like to, because very straightforward, I could say we've definitely had an uptick in just our call volume in the last, just simply put, 3 years since I joined. And maybe there's different reasons for that because of my background or other things, because another thing to note is that, the Department of Labor and Human Rights has jurisdiction over the state of North Dakota, but that does not include the tribal nations with which we share geography with, except in the cases where maybe there's a private business on fee land within the tribe's exterior boundaries, and it doesn't include a tribally owned business. That's a pretty specific example, but I should make note that with what some may call tribal schools, aka those that might get funding from both the state under the funding that the funding formula that has been established since I think the either 2015 or 2017 legislative session that has continued forward. So whether there's still, like, White Shield is a good example. White Shield is a school that receives Bureau of Indian Education funds, which of course are federal, but they're a public school district in North Dakota. So they also receive the funding under the formula through the state. In those cases, because of their public nature, we do have jurisdiction on those schools. And so that was another, I do that a little bit. I have to hop off.
That's okay.
But yes, to get back to your question, definitely an uptick in calls, especially during the very beginning of the pandemic. And then, of course, I mean, all the way through. And I don't want to say anything out of line, but, we're still viewing it as it's still ongoing because of the many questions that we still receive from it. So in that way, I think that we've seen more action there, as well as maybe in our complaint inquiries that we receive, where usually that can be posed by anyone who might be involved in a situation. For instance, an employer has a question about, I'm kind of going back to right at the beginning of COVID, but if there's a question related to, like, paid time off, we got a lot of those related to when someone, it has been asked to quarantine or whatever the case may be, has COVID themselves, whatever else. And the rules and, of course, policies at that time were a little bit different than they presently are. But we will take those and be able to work with both parties that it might affect in almost kind of like a mini mediation or conciliation effort to be able to resolve that question that way. Those have been on the uptick. I think that, and this isn't just, I hope I don't get too far off on this. We've worked pretty primarily remotely over the last 2+ years. We're now in a place where it's a bit of a hybrid mix. But I think that hearing from my own investigators, even with what I believe has been a bit of an uptake in our cases trending across the board, I think that they have found that, again, this isn't to hopefully have anyone think that I'm trying to sell remote work or anything else. I'm just stating that for our team, it worked exceptionally well to be able to work remotely, just even to be able to handle the amount of cases that we received. It wasn't like a landslide. And one thing I should note is that during the oil boom in like around the 2010s, et cetera, the Department of Labor and Human Rights really didn't feel the after effects, especially in the areas of wage and hour, specifically to labor, until like a year or two, even after the boom was sort of like trickling off. So we're constantly on guard of when the shoe could potentially drop. And as I've talked about with Barry and others, I really thought I could throw as much technology at trying to predict trends as possible, and have found that it's been pretty fruitless. So,
well, thank you.
Yes, I hope that answers.
Thank you.
Just
Absolutely.
a quick question on when you said jurisdiction. Does it extend to federal employees or federal employers? Do you guys handle cases for that? No?
No,
Okay.
just state.
State.
But it's an important question.
Thank you.
Erica, would you talk about, there's the 9 protected classes that are enumerated, but a huge thing happened after the Supreme Court ruling, the Bostock ruling, because a noted absence up to that point was sexual orientation, gender identity. So that's one word that something huge changed after the Bostock ruling. You want to talk about
Yeah.
that?
Sure. Thanks so much, Barry, by the way, and it's great to see you. I know we're virtual again, but great to see you. Sure. So on June 15th, 2020, the United States Supreme Court issued a very historic opinion, Bostock v. Clay County out of Georgia. And it actually was in combination with a couple of other cases, but they decided to go with Bostock as the main case to put out front and to use as the title to reflect the decision. The decision was written by Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch, who in all of my presentations I've given on this is a very much self-identified textualist. He's also a President Trump appointee, and by textualist, I mean he really just takes the words at the very core of the law of it. And so it was extremely interesting to see that he wrote this majority opinion with a few dissenters. I don't have my entire presentation pulled up, so I'm just going off of the top of my head because we've talked about this so much, Barry. But anyway, that decision was historic because in his own written language, Justice Neil Gorsuch expanded on the definition of because of sex that had been used so many times as a protected category and or class, whichever way you would like to look at it. Same thing to me when I talk about it generally. And these, I should just remind everyone as well, Barry had spoke about the 9, but in North Dakota, it's a race, color, national origin, religion, sex, which in North Dakota has already been expanded specifically in the state to include pregnancy, childbirth, and other related medical conditions, disability, age under the ADEA, 40 and older, citizenship status, genetic information. In North Dakota, there's even further protections that include marital status, lawful conduct outside of work, which is pretty across the board across the United States, the receiving of public assistance, keeping and bearing arms as long as a firearm is never exhibited on company property except for lawful defensive purposes under our laws here in the state, and then also status as a volunteer emergency responder. But under the category of sex, the opinion under Bostock from the Supreme Court, the law of the land that applies to all of us, all 50 states, and of course all jurisdictions underneath that, even further, was to say that sex included gender identity and sexual orientation, which I will just bluntly say was a huge win. There were 25 different states that were also affected by this opinion. And so even though it's not specifically written into Century Code, the Department of Labor and Human Rights, as soon as that opinion was issued, we did the necessary work on our end to be able to speak with everyone that we needed to, including the Attorney General's office, et cetera, to be able to make sure that we were in a legally safe place to be able to expand that even further beyond employment, because the basis in Bostock was Mr. Bostock was a man who was partaking in after work activities that included, and maybe wasn't even just limited to, but very specifically was noted in the opinion that he took place in a gay softball league, and not too far long after that was terminated with some pretty weak cause to it. So we knew that this directly related to our employment laws here in the state, but we expanded it to the entire North Dakota Human Rights Act as we saw fit legally, the language fit into it. So that includes all of the work that we do that I enumerated earlier. So this is a protection under sex, the definition of that in North Dakota, we enforce and uphold sex to also include sexual orientation and gender identity in fair housing, public service, public accommodation, everything else covered by the North Dakota Human Rights Act, the North Dakota Housing Act, and again, our employment laws that we also uphold.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other question? All right. Thank you so much, Erica, for joining us. Move
Thank you.
on here. The next.
Good to see you. Thanks, Erica.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you. The next item here is the update from the Communication and Governmental Affairs Department.
Handout for you guys. If you want to take one and pass it down, that'd be great. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for the opportunity to allow us to get in front of you and give a little bit of information about how we work as a department. So, along with me, I have Katie and Anders, and they're gonna give a little presentation as part of our larger presentation. So, I thought kind of what would help is just kind of if we went through a little bit of how we're organized in the department, so you kind of know some of the different tasks that we handle. I know there were a couple of questions that were a little bit unclear when the answers were given at last meeting. I was able to be watching some of the questions you had at your last meeting. So we're trying to ensure that the questions are answered in the presentation. And if they're not, we'll be happy to answer them right as we get through that. So this kind of gives you an idea for our team and how we're located and how we're organized. So what you're doing today at this meeting, how we're putting it out online, we're putting it out so people can be watching it. That's what's number one. So for all those broadcast services, every meeting in the chambers, as well as our outside meetings, we broadcast live on location. We have a group of individuals that do that. Number two, for what we do in creative services. Anything we're doing for online look, feel, videography, any pictures, any looks and feels, any graphic design, we have a small team that also handles those things. Number three, for community engagement, what we're doing online. I think the questions that you guys had last meeting, if you're going to be making an outlet on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube or Instagram, what is it that we do with that and what can we help with? We'll get into that. And then number four, for information, anything we do with members of the media, if it's a news release, if it's a news conference, if it's any of you working with members of the media to be doing interviews, we have individuals that are working on that. So those are kind of how our four different groups or our different divisions in comms is located. One of the questions that we get a lot is public information and community engagement. What really is the difference? And I'm going to have over here with Katie, I'm going to have her kind of explain what she does, and then I'm going to have Anders describe, what's different about his job in community engagement. So Katie will describe what she does in public information.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us. As Greg mentioned, I do the public information part of the communication team. So I really work and develop those relationships with our local media, even outreached into regional and national if events ever escalate to that level. And so we really work hard on developing and fostering the relationships with the media so that when we have a message we want out, we can collaborate with them and put out the message that we're hoping and make sure our community is well educated on things that we feel are important. For example, we work with press releases, and the story pitching is another thing. It's not always just reactionary events that are occurring in our community. We also work on doing story pitching to help guide the media in the way that we want things to be represented out to the public, really telling the stories behind the scene and not just like the here and now, but really building that background and telling them more about what's really going on. Media monitoring, watching local news, seeing what stories they're covering, ensuring that the information they're putting out is actually accurate and correct, and reaching out to them if we ever need to make changes to that. And then open record request is another thing in our area, in my division, that we work on a lot. Anytime somebody has an open record request, we curate the information in a timely manner, make sure all the century codes are being followed and get that back out to them. And then crisis communications is another area that we work on, whether it's a flood going on or an incident with the fire department or with the police department. There's always, we have a great team and we have a plan in place of how to handle those type of incidences.
Thank you very much, Katie. So now we're going to transition to the Community Engagement Division. I'll have Anders go through a little bit on what we do in community engagement.
Hi there. So yes, with community engagement, works very closely with public information side, but really looking at creating that look and feel. People are consuming their information on social media, and we know that. So we want to be able to reach people exactly where they're at, and reaching people on social media we find is quite effective. So curating, monitoring, connecting, humanizing that message. So you can have a lot of textual information, but how can we make that more digestible for the public by using graphics, videos, photos. So we as a team work together to create that content and then post that on social. And then with that, we work with, we want to create a conversation between the public and the organization with the City of Fargo. So we receive and respond to messages, questions that people receive, that people post as well. And then we look at the type of engagement we receive and try to put out more messaging based on what we're seeing is engaging really well and what people want to see more of. So with that, social listening as well, listening to the conversations, the type of questions that we're getting. If we're receiving a series of questions that are all related to each other, and we're identifying a theme, that we start planning some messaging saying, hey, maybe it would be worth putting out a post out about this to inform people because we're seeing multiple questions about the same topic. So, and then also with community engagement, we're working on website maintenance and posting updates on that. And with the look and feel that we're creating for social media, we also like to have that on the website so that people can find their information in multiple places. In addition to the Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, those common ones, we also target messages. We post to Nextdoor, and with Nextdoor, we have found value in the capability to be able to target messages by neighborhood. So if there's a message that specifically affects your neighborhood, we can select that message to be notified to those people on Nextdoor. And then event planning as well. When we have events hosted by the city or with partners, we want to promote those events, and we use social media to do so in addition to the website. So that's a rundown.
Thank you, Anders. So the next thing I wanted to give you guys is just an idea for some of the different groups, organizations, and channels that we currently support. So just like you, there are 32 different groups just like you in this organization. So we have to ensure that our resources are used as best as we can to support the mission of all of these groups. This is the challenge when I heard the conversation last month from Dr. Hogan that the HRC is looking for the comms team to be managing what you guys are looking to do on social media. I'm here to tell you we can't do that. There's no way that I can support the operational oversight of social media for this group, because I then have to do it for all of the other groups. What we do is we give you the support, we give you the resources to allow a member, if you decide to be a member, one of your members or two of your members want to do it. If you decide that there's another employee in our organization that want to do that, that really isn't our role. What we're saying is over the course of history, all these different groups and committees and commissions have decided to do it in different ways. I can go through the history and tell you what's worked well and what isn't. I don't think we're at that point right now. But I wanted to share with you, it's not as easy as just saying, we really want to have a page on social media and we want you guys to do it. Our challenge is to treating as everybody the same as best we can. That then opens the door for all the other groups to want to do that social media. Two, if we have up to 32 different channels on every social media, what kind of an audience are you really thinking that you're going to find? We find the value in amplifying the main channels of the organization. Our overall channels on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and Instagram and Nextdoor and LinkedIn, and sharing the content, because that audience is there and it's growing. When you talk about what the comms team invests their operational oversight in and our guidance, it's in those main channels. Now, on the other departments and other groups that have social media active, we will of course share that content on our main pages without question. Absolutely, we will do that. We will provide videography for this group as well as the other groups that meet in this room. If you want to have any pictures taken, as long as we can work through that with other needs and demands, we're happy to do that as well. If it's look and feel, if you want to have posters, pamphlets, placards, large displays, we have a graphic designer that can help with that. We're here to be an internal resource. The concern is just we don't have the ability to curate a social media page consistently. And I want to give you a little more information on that. When a member of the community sees that there is a group page that is affiliated with our organization, you take on the responsibility of answering those comments on behalf of the organization, even if the topic matter at hand has nothing to do with your group. That's the challenge. So when we have a commitment to respond to a resident within X number of hours, and if this group doesn't know how to respond to it, you're now looking for something totally unrelated to your mission and spending a lot of time investing in that. That's what I'm saying is we don't have the amount of time to open up a whole new channel for that flow of communication. Going forward to the next thing, in terms of how we're organized, we have 1,918 employees, I believe right now, and they're located over 22 different groups or different departments. In our departments, I would say about 7 of them have decided on social media that they wanted to be having their own pages. Let me assure you, we are treating them the exact same way as we're talking about today. If they have at least two members, we always say that, 2 employees per department have to be trained on how to be managing and curating their social media, then they can do that. If they need our assistance in, hey, how about, or what about, or is there a policy? Happy to help with that. But the day-to-day curation, posting, answering questions is all handled within those departments. I just wanted to assure you that we're treating everybody the same on that. And then the next question. So how many channels do we have right now that are associated with the city of Fargo? As of this morning, there are 42 of them. It is our preference to not expand that and continue to expand it, because when we look at the analysis of clicks, links, interactions, posts, question and answers, who's sharing, who's adding, who's encouraging a share, it's on the main platforms of the organization. It is where they go for questions, answers, and trusted information. I can tell you examples of groups just like yours. We had 2 of them kind of at the same time come in probably 6 years ago. And the question was, these groups want to have social media. And the 2 groups decided to handle it differently. One decided to say, as an employee, as staff, is there time to do it? And it was curated by a member of the planning team. That went one way. The other one was just like this board. And they said, we think that we want to have social media, but kind of in contrary to what I heard you guys say last month, there was 2 members of that board that said, we really want to be curating this. That one didn't work so well, because eventually that person either moved on, they didn't have the time for it. Tons and tons of messages were sitting in there. They weren't being answered. They weren't getting their answers made. They weren't getting at least 4 or 5 posts a week, which when you look at the analysis of analytics, if you're not posting content 4 or 5 times a week, and as Anders said, it's not just posting, it's engagement. How your posts are prioritized. All of you use social media, you know this. It's the engagement you get. So you can make a beautiful post, but if it just puts it in your face, doesn't encourage a question, comment, or answer, and you're not getting any comments or likes, for someone who's not looking at you already, that's not following your page in their newsfeed, it's not going to show up. So what I'm here to kind of suggest to you today is look at the best way to amplify what your message is. If working with Dr. Hogan, you still feel that having a social media channel or channels devoted specifically to this committee and group is something you want, we're happy to be getting it ready for you. We're happy to showcase all the different policies, the different look and feels. We're happy to help you do that. We can't curate it from an everyday usage point, and that's really clear. We're here as an advisor. We're here to get it off the ground. But in a year, if you come back to me and say, we asked Dr. Hogan and Dr. Hogan found someone to help support this, and we don't have anybody following it, I'm telling you, unless we get engaging posts, that's going to be a challenge. And so I really want to encourage you to invest the resources where it's going to make the most impact. The city's main channels have incredible amounts of engagement and growth, and they are ready for you to encourage you to utilize your content on there. So now how can we assist HRC today? Number one, we're in this room. Any live meetings, any virtual meetings, anytime you guys want to do something not in City Hall, you want to broadcast something live, that's something we can do with that. Number two, when you have a news story or a newsy type story and you want to do media relations, one of you want to speak to the media. If it's Dr. Hogan, great. If it's one of you and Dr. Hogan, great. If you want any training on that, happy to help with that. If you don't need training but need help doing a news release, 100% yes. Then when we have media, when they're here with you, if you want to make sure that they're asking questions that are related to what we're talking about, not going off the rails, that's why we're there. We can quickly move an interview back to the request so it doesn't put you in a spot that's not comfortable. Number three, as we've been talking about a lot in this presentation, how are we going to engage the community? One of the requests I know we've already been working on and we have in the process of is what you're doing on the website. There's some pretty substantial requests that you guys have had to reorganize the website. That is exactly why we're here. If you want to change the look and feel, how we're organizing it, how it's organized behind the scenes, so how it appears in a different way, that's entirely why we're here. On an ongoing basis, content management of routine content, whether it's little posts, little blurbs, that kind of thing, just as we do in all the departments, just as we do in all of the groups, just like yours. We have website individuals that are trained in every department, in planning, engineering, public works, solid waste. They keep the website current. We talk about how is it being used? How is it being reorganized? How long are people staying on your page? How many clicks are they taking before they get to a page with a high usage? That's why we're here. And then when we're talking about social media, how we're going to amplify your information on the main pages. If you decide to go on a social media site and you want to launch it, how do you do that? We're happy to help with that. And then on an operational thing, overall questions. 100% here for that as well. And then number four, kind of briefed on this already, but when you are involved in events, videography, photography, any graphic design services, look and feel, that is what we're here for. So with that, any specific comments, questions, things I left out, things I can clarify, I'm happy to do so.
Thank you so much, Greg. You guys have a question?
Well, Greg, would you just, it's such a basic question, and when you talk about the city main channels, what are the main channels? Are
Yep.
those
I was anticipating you were going to ask that, sir. So on the main page, I just had up our social media policy. So when you're on the main page, and this is on every single page we have on our website, if you look at the bottom, you're going to see our main social media channels we have for the organization. So we have Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Nextdoor. And these are the main overall channels for the whole organization. On the bottom of every page, you also see where it says Social Media Center. If I click on that, that's going to take you through, that is the home. When I told you our total number of channels for the city, that's where they're all located. You can see all the ones we have on Facebook, all the ones we have on Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, one on Pinterest, and 2 departments have different blogs. What I can tell you is, of all of the 42 that I just showed you, comms curates 6. Directly curates 6. And when I mean directly curates, that means we create the posts, we analyze them, we respond to the questions, we do all of that. The other 36 channels are curated internally by an existing member of staff in the departments that are supporting the work of these groups.
If I could ask a question?
Yes.
And so I know that the conversation thus far has just been that we have a Facebook page.
Correct.
The Human Relations Commission, now Human Rights Commission, does. And I know that it was just a question of how do we gain access to it to curate ourselves? Because we acknowledge the fact that like there's not enough time in your department. So I guess moving forward is just how do we continue that conversation of how do we get access to that to do that on our own?
So and it's a great question. Thank you for that. So as your liaison for staff that would oversee that with Dr. Hogan, what the comms team would do is transition that access since the Planning and Development Department had previously supported this commission and a member of staff on that, and their staff was supporting this, we would transition the control of the account from Planning and Development over to Dr. Hogan. And then what we would rely on Dr. Hogan as a staff liaison is to allow access to 1 or 2 of you to make posts, but the owner would still remain Dr. Hogan as staff. So in the event, one of you decided to be leaving the board and then that access goes with you, that was the untold story that I didn't tell on the last one, is with that individual before on a board that left, that access went along with them and we couldn't reach them. Mm-hmm. So it was a lot of effort and work, with social media channels to get that access back. Mm-hmm. So that's what we would do, is we would grant the full access to Dr. Hogan. He would grant you operational access. If there was ever a change in the, you as a board, he would just take that access away, but he would maintain full access. Sure. We can easily make that happen.
That makes sense. Thank you. And then I know we just haven't had a policy on before, just creating that. So,
yep. And we're definitely happy to help with that as well.
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Greg, I like your thought on, if you do it for one, you do it for all, and 32 is a huge thing to add. I do have a question on from an equity piece, just on the platforms for the city itself. For Facebook specifically, and the city lights on the exterior. My question is, if you're doing, that Facebook post on appreciating the community, in shouting out joys to celebration of cultures or other religions or other anything, I don't see it reflected to the whole community when those posts are happening. How do we change those where we are celebrating not just one group, but the whole group of us Fargo residents, whether it's posting up Happy Thanksgiving, changes of colors, Pride, Halloween. I've seen that post, but I have never seen the lights changing or Facebook post social being made for joy of other residents who are celebrating different cultures, different religions.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Thank you very much for that. So with the exterior illumination, we currently have 97 different events that we have scheduled. That we do have events for the exact purpose that you are talking about. What I think would be a great thing for me to do, and something I could really ask for your help, is if at your next meeting, I could ask Dr. Hogan to send you a list of all the events that we currently have as an option that we can illuminate City Commission chambers with. The great part about it is that we, with the firm from Minneapolis that is programming illumination, we have it under their contract that at least 2 times a year we can ask them to be adding additional scenes. So where you see we have gaps, that would be a phenomenal opportunity that you could let us know and we can get those added. I would really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can you scroll back up to the top?
100%.
We are the Human Rights Commission,
Yep.
not the Human Relations Commission.
Correct. And that was, and what that was just what it had previously been known as. And since there's been no update on the page since there's been a transition, it's remained the same. But
Just thought I'd point it out.
I appreciate that very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other question?
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Greg,
you,
with
guys.
your team. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Yep.
The next item is the update on Moorhead Human Right Commission meeting. And I'll let you speak to that, Ms. Chaffel.
The June meeting for the Moorhead Human Rights Committee was yesterday at 5 p.m. And I did show it, and there was a meeting. I mean, I showed up, and they were actually having a meeting because the May one had been canceled, and I hadn't heard about it. The meeting pretty much goes on like hours. They had someone from the community speak that was speaking when I got there. After that, they talked about different events. And they had committee reports, committees, different subcommittees and things. Then they closed the meeting, and I went up to the chairperson afterwards to introduce myself and just let her know that I was from the Fargo Human Rights Commission, that I wasn't necessarily there in an official capacity at the time, but I came over to do some reconnaissance for us. And to introduce myself, to let her know that we were there. And she was very, very happy and very receptive, and definitely would like to look at doing some liaison work later on, like to maybe set someone up from each commission who will come to the meetings of the other commission, so that we can keep in touch on what we're doing, keep up to date on what the two different commissions are doing. And she also saw absolutely no reason why we shouldn't look at doing events and things together. It makes no sense to not pool our resources on things.
Good point.
Because, look at how many things are FM this, Fargo Moorhead this. And that doesn't mean that we don't keep our separate entities, because we are separate cities, but it doesn't mean that we can't collaborate and come together on things. I think what we need to do is work on an official way to contact them and set up times to where we would have representatives from our commission and representatives from there, like maybe 2 or whatever, to sit down and talk about what we could do together in an official way. And for us to just figure out a way for our official contact. And anyway, they were the chairperson was, I didn't speak to everybody on the committee, but was extremely receptive to our getting together and collaborating. So that's all I have. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Thank you. Any question? Thank you for going there. The next item on our agenda here is the announcement. Do any HRC member have any announcements?
Yes, I was asked to chair the nominating commission, committee, for chair and vice chair. Just to remind, a couple of years ago, we voted that the vice chair would fleet up to be the chair. The chair would serve for 2 years, the vice chair for 2 years, and then the vice chair would fleet up to be the chair. So it is my recommendation to the commission that we nominate Cody Severson to be the chair of the Human Rights Commission, and that we nominate Ahmed Schill to be the vice chair. And having said that, I also want to thank Matur for all of his great work in all these years.
Thank you. Point of correction, I think it's 1 year per term, right? So 2 years, a 2-term. So they can serve 2 consecutive years. as
Yeah,
second
2
term.
consecutive years.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay,
yes. Thank you.
thank you. Does anybody want to make a motion to that?
Certainly. I'll make the motion to approve the recommendation from Carolyn.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. I think we will board one at a time, okay? Of those who approve of Cody to take over as the chair, say yeah.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? For Ahmed to be the vice chair, say yeah.
Yay. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Oppose, say no. The pass. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you, folks.
This was supposed to happen on the next meeting, but we will not be here. I will not be here and Cody won't be here. So we agreed to cancel the next month meeting. So we'll convene again in July. No, August. August, okay. Thank you. And any other announcements?
Yeah, to the commission, I'm going to have Becky to speak towards the apparatuses that they're putting on the doors for, you know, the disabled, disabilities and so forth. She's going to speak to that.
Good afternoon. On Monday, May 2nd, at the commission meeting, a public comment was brought up. Actually, it was a concern about the accessibility to the commission chambers. And one of those concerns was that there was no auto operator on the commission doors. When this facility was built, we made certain that everything was ADA compliant. But the request for an auto operator on the commission doors is not a heavy lift. And in fact, the facilities department had actually already started the process of installing an auto operator on one of our department doors, where we had had some citizen comments about how heavy the door was to open. So it was very easy for us, following that public comment, to just request that our vendor duplicate that action at the rest of our department doors, the lobby doors where our citizens enter, as well as the commission doors. We are about 2/3 of the way through. 4 of them are fully operational, 3 of them are installed and just need the electrical connected. And then we have 2 left to install, one of those being the commission. To be very honest, our vendor wanted to make sure that they were really, really good at the process before they installed it at the chambers. So they did leave that one for last. But the project is expected to be completed by the next commission meeting on June 27th. Any questions for me?
That is wonderfully receptive. We appreciate that.
Thank you for following up on that one. I think that was raised in our last meeting too, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other announcements? The next item.
Oh, go ahead. Somebody down there?
No, sure. We still on announcements or updates, or if I wanted to
We're
make
still
a
on
comment, it'll fall under announcement or updates.
Have any announcements?
No, I have just things I want to say.
Okay. Any announcement?
Well, Commissioner Thunder had indicated that there was one thing that she was going to reference, and I think it's just, it has more to do both nationally and not necessarily here in Fargo. So I'll just be real brief. She's just alluded to the fact that there's been quite a bit of activity on Facebook, particularly that's being directed at scheduled Pride events, and that there is a particular Facebook page that's taken off on the derivative of a protect whatever entity children that's being directed in Bismarck, where their pride is coming up this weekend. And it's a concern that she has, she knows that law enforcement has. She's alerted to the highway patrol. The unfortunate aspect is that it's creating a very intimidating impact on the community that typically has a celebratory nature. So it's something I guess we just will all be very alert to and monitor. And I'm sure our fine police department here too is aware and probably will be monitoring as we go forward. Like I said, whether or not anything bad comes out of it, some of the things that were happening was that people specifically were being targeted and raised on the Facebook page as identified in not a very complimentary way. So it was felt as very intimidating. So just she had wanted to bring that to the attention of us and other entities in the state, and that she's alert and involved with that. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that, Barry. And the next item is a staff update.
Sergeant Jacobson.
Just a reminder that we will be facilitating the booth on Saturday's Juneteenth event at Faith for Hope. And so we will have all of your information that's provided to us from the staff. So all you have to do is show up, and we will have the canopy and the table and the chairs and I believe pamphlets on your behalf available for you. So you'll just have to look for our squad car and our canopy in order to partner with the city and the various entities for that event. We'll have staff there from 12 until the close of the event at 7. So we shouldn't be too difficult to locate in that parking lot.
Where is it again?
Faith for Hope up
Okay.
on 19th Avenue North.
Okay.
So you'll just look for the fire truck and the squad car, and we will take care of you. Also, secondarily, we are looking for confirmation on whether the Human Rights Commission, is still interested or not in having a booth at the Fargo Police Picnic, which is the 29th at Urban's Plain Park. So we have not heard official confirmation on whether you are staffing the event from 5 until 8 p.m.
And when do you need that by, like now?
Now.
I think with the email that I sent out, a couple people said that they were able to do that. Yes?
We
Yes,
provide the
so-
table and chair. You would just need to bring any tablecloth or any other resources or handouts, and then, of course, your staff. And so we would need to know, we're presuming 1 table, 2 chairs.
Confirmed we will be there.
Perfect. We'll have 1 table and 2 chairs set up for you, and we'll have that set. And then we wanted to obviously piggyback off of Barry Nelson's comments in reference to Pride events. So we do have an LGBTQ plus liaison within the Fargo Police Department who is working with the coalition in establishing all of the events surrounding Pride, as we have historically over the last several years. So utmost safety, both physical and emotional, is a concern of ours. And so we will be collaborating, working with all of the organizers for the various events to ensure safety protocols and needs are met. So, and we will, again, with their No July meeting, we will have all of the same, whatever is provided to your organization for the Pride in the Park booth in August as well. So all you'll need to do, again, is look for the police car and the canopy, and we will have whatever is provided by staff available to you. So all you have to do is show up to the event, and we'll have your table and chairs all set up.
Mr. Chair?
Thank you.
Jamie, you have anything to say?
We just purchased a new canopy as well, hoping to we'll be there on Saturday. So excited to join that event.
Thank you.
And last but not least, the mayor stopped by today. That's kind of unusual. He stopped in. So, Mayor, do you have anything to say?
Nicely run meeting, thank you. And just for you all to know, normally when we do a vote on anything, it's a Fargo tradition to say all those say aye, because we're kind of like pirates sometimes. We all say aye. So just a suggestion, mature.
Thank you. It's my last time, anyway. All right. All right. Any updates, commissioners?
No, I just had some thoughts that I just wanted to speak on, if that's okay.
Yeah.
First, congratulations, Dr. Mahoney, on your reelection. It's awesome. And congratulations to all the other winners, especially Denise, the newcomer. I know her personally. She'll do a great job. Congrats to everyone else that ran a successful race. I wanted to actually bring up things that I've learned, and I think it's appropriate for me to share on here. So as first-time person who ran, and I was really encouraged by community to do that and to make an impact. So my first goal was to create that impact, that awareness, as a community, as a collective community, we can step up. And I'm really happy I did it. I'm not disappointed at all. I'm excited for the future. I'm extremely happy. One thing that I wanted to share that is really things that I learned that really sort of discouraged a lot of community, including myself. It's really based on things that I have seen from whether volunteers were door knocking, whether they went to the polls to vote. Something that that came to light is something nasty that is called voter suppression, and I wanted to talk about that for a second because the race that we had in Fargo itself, it's historic. We have so many women that stepped up and wanted to make a difference. We had so many people of BIPOC that stepped up and wanted to make a difference. It wasn't long ago that those individuals that decided to run could not even run or vote. But, those changed. But what's one thing that hasn't changed? It's still being looked at in the way you are, and for people to actually, I had police called on me while I was door knocking. I had a dog sent to me when I was door knocking. I had witnessed individuals from the New American community, others who did not look like your average voters, to be sent away and challenged. I myself, as a candidate who was on the ballot, felt extremely discomfort at the voting place trying to go vote because of the tone of the individuals that were there. So I just wanted to really say that out loud so that as a community leaders, as elected official, Mr. Mayor, and I really am happy that you're sitting here, the community looks up to you to make a difference. You have a huge support in this community to help you make those effective decisions so that it creates an impact for everyone. So I challenge everyone just to look outside and think of ways to make an impact so that we can move forward and that everyone feels welcome. Thank you.
Any other comment?
I think Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Could I ask the commission to follow up on that? Because I heard your comments, but there is an election committee and they need to hear that. I was very pleased with all the candidates who we had, and we had a variety of candidates. First time we've ever had that. I was also very pleased with how many votes you got as well when you went out and got votes. But I think we have to explain the voting part. We have to fix that. That should not be at all, because I went into my voting area, Atonement Church, and people were voting. It did not seem to be harassing anybody, but we need to know that, and they need to fix it. Because as you know and I know, we wanted to get people out to vote, and everybody should. And I thought more people get out and vote. I was very pleased about that. but we can't have people feel uncomfortable when they vote. It has to be, my son turned 18 and he got to vote this election. It has to be that welcoming, glad you're voting, let's get this done for you. And if we need to have people at the stations to help us, if we have to have interpreters around, we have to figure it out to make it friendly. Because the more people vote, the more important it is for our community. I'll take it personally, but your commission, I think, as well can make a comment. And also, there's an election committee, and I'll tell Terry who that is. And I would like, if you wouldn't mind, some of your members to come and talk to the election committee.
Thank you. I think that would be great because I have the same experience with one of our supporters, and it was brought to attention of our campaign manager at the time that somebody that were born in Minneapolis were rejected to vote and that they have to verify their citizenship. So, and it happened a lot to a lot of new American. I had to do with the system or the people or the voting polls. So, and most of their ballot were put away for some verification, which is not going to happen during the election time, maybe later on in the month. So, and a lot of other people that had problem reading or writing were sent, or their absentees ballot were sent letters to provide the proof of citizenship too. So, thank you. I think.
Before you adjourn, I just wanted to give a shout out. I just realized we are Facebook Live for the school board member who, all of them that did win, especially Nimal Day, because I have worked with her and she worked so hard and showed up, and I just want to acknowledge that, you know, your work paid off. You're a committed person in the community. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Make one.
Yeah.
First of all, Ahmed, thank you. Ahmed and Mature, thank you for stepping up and running. Ahmed, thank you for your comments today. It's really important. I just want to identify there were, this did become known, part of the problem. So there were about, I think, 12, 14 of us who were poll watching on election day because we had recognized people were being turned away or asked for illegal, and I think the treatment is what needs to particularly be addressed. There's a flaw in our election process, but there's also a flaw in our training of how one deals with public. So both need to be addressed. So in addition to your voices, know that there will be other voices that will be joining that observed it firsthand. So thank you for bringing it.
Thank you.
You know, I wasn't planning to say anything, but since you shout out, I just want to say thank you to Amy Jacobson. She was there. She identified all of the problem that was going on, and people were turning away to vote. So I just want to say thanks to Amy Jacobson.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, and I just wanted to chime in. I actually had signed up to be an election judge. And so I went through the training. Now on Monday morning, Sunday evening, Monday morning, I got a sore throat and I had a cold. And so I called them up and said, I'm sorry, but I can't do it because they didn't want anybody coughing or sniffing there. And I wanted to make sure I let them know well in advance to find someone to fill in for me. But I was there for the training, and I was there for the training that they gave to check for citizenship. And it was not very extensive. I mean, they had 2 hours that they gave us training for the whole day and everything that needed to be done. And I believe that there definitely needed to be more attention paid to that during the training. Because it was basically ask them, you know, if their driver's license doesn't say whether or not, you know, and to ask them and stuff and set it aside. But there also has to be a certain amount of discretion that is done too, you know, and also how you ask and how you go about things. And that was not necessarily done during the training. I do understand that they had 2 hours and there was a whole lot of stuff that they needed to do it, but there also still needs to be some sensitivity training when it comes with the question of citizenship.
All right.
I don't know if everyone knew, North Dakota and Arizona are the only states that require citizenship for local process voting. And, you know, North Dakota actually centric code, I can't remember, but it only says to bring your license. If it doesn't have a current address, bring a utility. It does not say anything about bring your citizenship if you just are, you know, so in a way, yeah. But thank you.
Right, and what we were told in the training that was on their driver's license, it would say whether or not they were a citizen or not. And the only thing that they went into more depth on was whether or not it was possible that the person had achieved their citizenship since they got the driver's license. So there wasn't even a question in the training that someone might come without a driver's license, you know, with a different type of ID or whatever, that could be a citizen. And just because someone has an accent or doesn't walk up looking like they're a native North Dakotan, shouldn't make a difference. And there needs to be more sensitivity put forth in the training, because the only training that we had was what, if it says on their driver's license they're not a citizen, maybe they got citizenship between now and then. So there definitely needs to be more in the training, and there actually should probably be more information put out when they put out the information for voting to begin with. Because they put out information on where the polling places are going to be and you know what the ballot's going to be, who's possibly even working with the League of Women Voters, because they were extremely good at putting out information, you know, and maybe working with them on getting more information out. And there's lots of things that can be done to alleviate the problem and at least make it much more comfortable for everybody.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Is there any other business? Hearing none, this meeting of Human Rights Commission stand adjourned. Our next meeting is scheduled for August 18 at noon here. Thank you.